Hi there. So, within the ME community, there's a lot of people that like to talk about simulation theory, but I don't think a lot of people believe it. And I'm one of those people myself. I like to sort of think about the idea of simulation theory, but I don't really know if I quite believe that that's what this place is, that this is all a simulation. I don't know, it doesn't quite feel right to me. I heard Jensploration mention that in an interview on a video that she had, and I agree with her. It just doesn't feel right. But I sort of realized today that perhaps there are aspects of simulation theory that are useful to understanding what this reality is. And I just wanted to share my thoughts and ideas. Okay, so this is a little bit of an analogy, but I just want you to close your eyes for a moment and just imagine that you're in a mall, in a shopping mall, and you walk along, and then all of a sudden there's this stand, and there's a couple of guys that are showing off this new virtual reality headset that they've got, and they're trying to get people to play it, try it out, and it's the latest greatest thing, and you think, oh, okay, I'll give that a go. So you walk over, you have a look, you put the virtual reality goggles on, and you start playing. So this game, this virtual reality game, it's just amazing. Like, the graphics are intense, the sound effects are awesome, and the experience is just so real. It's like almost surreal. It's just amazing, and you just get really engrossed in the game, and you start playing, and you keep going, and before you know it, maybe an hour's passed, and the guys at the stand don't care that there's no one else around, so they just let you keep playing, and you're just playing this game, and you sort of forget about the real world. You're just so intense. You're shooting zombies or whatever you're doing, and running around and flying and just having fun within this virtual reality game. And then all of a sudden, the guy at the stand who's running the place, he's like, oh, I've got to get rid of this guy now. I've got to wake him up. I've got to get him out of this game. He's been playing too long. So he whispers in your ear, and he just says something to you. He just whispers, and it goes through your ears, and you can hear it. But you've been in this game for so long, you've been so engrossed in it, that you kind of forgot about the real world for a moment. Or the world outside of your virtual reality headset. You sort of, it's like watching a movie, and you're so deep into the movie, and all of a sudden someone in front of you just suddenly coughs, and you're like, whoa, and you realize that actually you're stuck in the movie, and now you're sort of out of it a little bit. But you've been playing this game for so long, you sort of almost forget about the real world for a second. And you hear this voice, coming in, and it's not like anything else in the game. Like, there's no one in the game that's talking to you. There's no one speaking to you. There's nothing around that could indicate where this voice come from. So you're really confused. You're like, what on earth was that voice? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, it's not part of my experience of what this game is about. It doesn't match up with any of the rules, any of the laws of reality that I've come to know and accept about what's in this game. And you're just really confused. Like, what on earth was that? What on earth was that voice? Like, it was a bit of a whisper. It was a gentle whisper, and it sort of combined with all the other noises that were going on within the virtual reality and all the other sights and experiences you had. But you heard this voice, and you heard the words, and you sort of like, you kind of understood it in a way. But it's like, what was that about? All right, so that was the story. So you're in the shopping mall and all of that. That's just an analogy to get you to think a little bit differently, and it's a bit of an introduction to what I really want to say. So I had this idea come to me this morning, and the idea was thinking about our brains, the brain as like a projection machine, which projects our reality onto our consciousness. So, in the analogy, in the story, you are a human and all of that, you're inside a virtual reality. But imagine now, in real life, in this system that you know, imagine that the real you, your higher self, or whatever you want to call it, the real you is consciousness, and the real you doesn't really have a body. So my idea is that you're think of it as a bit of a diagram. There's the world and everything that we know about the world. You know, you've got the universe, you've got the planets, you've got the sun, you've got everything within the earth. We've got the continents and where they all sit together, geography. You've got, you know, towns and cities. You've got people, animal, plants. Everything's going on. So there's the world. And then within the world, interacting with that, you have your body. So your body is sort of like part of the world, and your body is able to perceive via the senses the world around it. So your body is able to perceive what it can see, what it can hear, what it can smell, all of that. And let's just take one of those senses. So let's just focus on the eyes. So your eyes will see things in the world and will be able to see everything that it's able to see. All the things that we've experienced. So what feels to us like 100% of reality, everything, if we can't see it, it doesn't exist. That sort of line of thought is what we've been led to believe. But then your eyes, what you actually see with your eyes isn't necessarily what's actually going on. Your eyes just send information to your brain, and then your brain takes all of those pictures, and it's a huge amount of data, and it kind of just filters through, and it takes this is what science says, it takes that information from your eyes, it filters it down, and it just picks out the bits that it likes, and it makes an interpretation of those pictures, and it turns them into pictures that the brain can process and the brain can understand, and it combines that with past experience and past knowledge, and it forms everything in your brain with lots of different thoughts and ideas, and all these things come together all in one vivid picture that you're experiencing. But then that picture in your brain, and this is where my idea comes in, going a little bit beyond science, a little bit into a different world, is that your brain then projects those pictures that it's formed onto your consciousness. So your consciousness is what's really experiencing everything, and your consciousness is what really exists and what you really are. And so when you have a body, via your senses, via your eyes, via your brain, you're getting all these ideas and pictures and things projected onto your consciousness. So that's what you experience. So it's like 99% of the time you may be experiencing everything that is of the world, and seeing things and hearing things and smelling things. But what if that's just a small part of everything that really exists? So there may be much more, actually, let's use the word universe, is not the best word, but there may be so much more in the universe, in everything that exists, but we can only perceive what's of the world, because that's what our brain can interpret and observe. So we're limited basically to what our brain and body can see and experience. And for us that feels like 99% of everything, or 100% of everything, but really that may just be 5% of what really exists. Okay, so now this idea of the brain and body projecting onto your consciousness, giving you these pictures and giving you this experience, it's not a major leap from my point of view. It's a very small idea. It's just a very small thought that I had. It's just kind of connecting the dots a little bit. It's not a major leap in innovation and some amazing um, world-shattering thought, but with it, with this idea, it explains so much, and it's really powerful at the same time. So, with this idea, it kind of explains all sorts of things. So just imagine, for example, uh, once our time is up, we've had a great lifetime, and imagine you've got to 100 years old, and you've gone, all right, well, I had a pretty good life, and then something happens, and then you pass away, and everyone else around you is all sad and all of that, but you pass away, and then what happens next? You know, there's the view of some people that's it, life is over and nothing else happens. And then other people believe that, we go to heaven, and then other people believe that we recycle, that we reincarnate, and then other people have other thoughts as well. Some people have had near-death experiences where they have actually left their body and they sort of experience things in their consciousness that is not of the body. So that idea of having a near-death experience and having a soul experience that is not of the body and being, in a different place and experiencing different things, it makes sense if you take the view that, that we are consciousness, that ideally, that in what we really are is consciousness. If you take that perspective, then that all makes sense. And then the body is kind of like this projection machine that allows us to have all of these experiences. But when you don't have the body, then you have different experiences. And so kind of like the vivid world, the 3D world, space and time, they all exist. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I feel like they exist within the universe, but they're just like a small fraction of what everything that really exists. And when we're in the body, when we're in this world, we're kind of like confined to that space and to this time, and we're confined to those ideas, and we're confined to this life in that sort of way. But beyond this life, we may be able to have other experiences and experience different things. Okay, so getting back to the idea of the brain being a projection machine onto our consciousness, what happens if you switch the brain off? Can you experience other things within the universe? Can you have other experiences that are not of this world when you ignore the brain and you ignore your senses? For people who meditate a lot, and apparently there's different types of meditation, some people have had something like an out-of-body experience. I've heard those sort of stories before. I'm really interested and really excited when I hear those stories, although I can't really say I've had like a really vivid experience myself, but they just feel right to me when I hear those stories. So that sort of thing would make sense if you take the view of the brain being a projection machine onto our consciousness. If the brain is switched off, the brain's not there, or it's not active, but our consciousness is still there, we may be able to have other different experiences. So by doing meditation and quietening the brain down, or if you're like Vanessa VA and you had an experience where you're really bored one day and you're not really thinking about anything. Your brain's kind of just in la la land, and then all of a sudden you stand up and the blood just sort of flows from your brain, and you can't think properly, and then all of a sudden you have this out of body experience, and you start to see all of these entities, all these beings around you, and they're all singing this amazing song, and it's kind of interacting with the music from the radio at the same time. So you're kind of like in two worlds at the same time. That kind of experience would make sense if you take this idea of again, the brain projecting onto our consciousness, and when the brain's kind of switched off or disabled in some way, maybe we can have more of the other experiences. So instead of 99% of our experience being of the world, you might be able to get another, it might be able to pull it down to 90% or 50% or 30%, and the rest of our experience might become something else. We might be able to be in two places at once and observe that, or all of those sort of things could happen. Also, I'm personally of the view, or I like the idea that that there are other entities out there that may be able to see our world to some extent, and sort of like get a bit of an idea of where we are within reality. Sort of like the person at the mall who can see that the guy's playing the virtual reality game, and maybe he has a little monitor, and he can see the monitor and sort of get a bit of a perspective of what the guy's playing and what's going on within the VR system to some extent. Or in the Matrix movie, where the people outside the Matrix are looking at the screen and they just see all the characters falling down, and they can get a rough sense of what's going on, even if they don't know exactly what's going on. They sort of have a rough sense of what's going on inside the system. So in that way, I feel like there may be entities or consciousness or spirits or something that don't have bodies, but are able to observe us and help us and guide us in some way. Whether you feel that that's God or some higher self or other entity, I don't really care too much about the names and the labels and what you call it, but I feel like there is like a guiding force that helps us in some way, and those spirits may not have bodies, but they may be able to sort of get an idea of what's going on, and they may be able to kind of guide us in some way. And when they do so, we'll start to get things that don't really, we might be able to experience things in the world, but they don't really make sense as being of the world. So this gets back to the kind of analogy of the guy in the shopping mall playing the VR virtual reality game, and someone whispers in his ear. So you could have this experience where all of a sudden you look up in the sky and the clouds part, and then for no reason at all the clouds just disappear, and then all of a sudden you see two heads in the sky, which hasn't happened to me, but it's happened to other people. You see these heads and they're just looking down at you, and they don't really have clear faces, but they're sort of watching you, observing you. You got to try and take a picture, and then they just disappear because they know that you're watching them. That sort of experience could be entities that are like sort of out of this world a little bit, that are kind of projecting onto your consciousness directly. So they might not necessarily be in the world, they might not be in the system that we know, but they may be trying to help you or guide you in some way, and they can actually like influence you personally, and you might be able to see something or hear something, and no one else can see or hear that, but for you it's very real. And for others, they may just think that you're crazy, but that may just be an entity out there who's projecting onto your consciousness directly in a different way, that's not through this sort of like virtual reality headset, which is your brain. Does that kind of make sense? These are all ideas I had, but all of these stories that I've read and all these ideas, they all kind of like click, click, click. They all kind of like connect the dots. They kind of all make sense if you take this perspective of the brain projecting our reality onto our consciousness. But there may be other ways, other entities, there may be other things that can project onto our consciousness, and we may be able to have other experiences that are not of this world, That's kind of what excites me a little bit. And a lot of people in the community, the ME community, I guess they sort of felt perhaps through their lives. I get the feeling that a lot of people felt that, something wasn't right. And even the average day-to-day person, I think they get this sense that something's not right, and that um, maybe there's more to life, or they just humans are always looking for more, but they can't really find it. And perhaps it's just because we're always looking through this lens, through these goggles of what our brain is giving to us. And maybe we just maybe we need to switch off our brains for a while, switch on our hearts, listen to our heart for some time, and maybe it will help guide us. Maybe it will help us see things a bit more clearly. Maybe we can have experiences that are not of this world, but they're able to help us in this world and help others in this world. Maybe it can wake us up in some way. So thank you for listening, and I hope that helps somebody.